I'm not gonna lie, I filmed this video like 10 times already, and every time I've tried to film it, it either wasn't recording or cut off, and it's just been a mess. I'm very over it. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jessi's Journey, or if you're new here, hello, my name is Jessi. I am an American expat living in Prague. I'm traveling on the side, filming my journeys, giving some travel tips. So if that's the type of content you like, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you get video updates in the future. Now for today's video, I'm actually probably doing what is my most highly requested video. I get comments on my other videos about this, as well as DMs to my Instagram, which is probably the best place to contact me if you do have questions. I'll leave a link on the screen to my social media accounts. But yeah, that's the question of how much does it really cost to relocate, specifically to Prague, a little bit broader to Europe. So I'm gonna kind of delve into the budget for that. I would say I'm generally calculating startup costs covering maybe like the first 1 to 3 months. It's kind of a broad topic to cover, but I feel like this just as a budget overall sums up general expenses you wouldn't expect to have. So hopefully this is helpful. I know if you're considering moving to Asia to teach English or just relocate there, prices are going to be a lot different. Cost of living is just different there, as well as if you're going for teaching English, usually they cover like your housing for you, airfare, health insurance, visa stuff. So this is mainly going to be more so focused on Prague and then also Europe, because I'm assuming it's kind of applicable to surrounding countries to this area. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's get into the video, guys. Okay, so if you've been following my channel for a while, you might know the main reason I moved to Prague was to teach English. But I had gone to school for business management. Originally, I'd gone for opera and then switched my major. I had worked in an eye doctor's office for 1.5 years before I came here, so I was really underqualified to actually teach in a classroom. So I needed to get what is called a TEFL certification. Now, I've done videos on TEFL before, so I'll link those down below. But generally, it just stands for teaching English as a foreign language. It's a certificate that you need, even, I'm pretty sure, like, even if you have an undergrad in education or English, it's usually a requirement to teach abroad. So it's something you just kind of have to do. But on the plus side of it, it gives you flexibility to literally work and live anywhere in the world where English isn't the primary language. Now, you have a couple options when it comes to doing your certificate. You can do online classes, you can do in-person classes. I personally, after researching, thought it was going to be better for me to do in-person. I liked that I had one-on-one teacher-student time with my teachers, and then as well as me being a teacher, I had to do private lessons as well as in-class lessons, and I had a physical instructor in the room with me while I was doing those lessons. So I thought it just gave me a generally more realistic perspective as to what the real world was going to be like. And then I could also put those hours that I had taught on and had an advisor in with me on my resume when I was initially applying to jobs. Now, there are also pros to doing online courses. One, you can pick your hours that you do them. So if you're working full time, you don't have to quit your job to do it. Whereas I had to move to Prague for a month without any income to do my course. And also it's generally cheaper. And now I do want to say, just because it's cheaper, like, definitely does not mean it's like a good choice for you to go. I'm not just saying like online stuff, I'm talking about in general. There are so many certification programs out, and I'd say in general they probably average like maybe $1,200 to $1,700, but just because it's on the lower side does not mean it's a course you want to take. This is something you do, it's an investment into your life. You do want to spend money on. I think mine was about like $1,500, which is a lot of money, but it was 100% worth it for the quality of education I got and the reputation I got from the school, then going out into the real world and applying for jobs. Okay, so I decided to do my course in person, but even if you do it at home, you're eventually going to be moving somewhere to teach, so then you have to calculate in your flight. My flight to go from, I flew out of Baltimore, which was like the closest major city to my small town in Pennsylvania, to Prague, and that cost about $500. I only got a one-way flight. Later on in the course, I was told that you're supposed to buy a round-trip flight in case you got stuck at like immigration when you were coming in, but I guess I just didn't read that email, and I booked my one-way flight first. Read emails, that's probably important. Pro tips, saves you money. But yeah, I ended up just booking a one-way. It was about $500 to get to Prague, and yeah, if I had to go back, that would have been another expense that I wasn't expecting. Now, I was very lucky that the course I did would provide temporary housing for me for my first month here, but if we're gonna be really honest, I definitely overpaid for my housing for the first month. I could have definitely probably found something cheaper on Airbnb or through a hostel, and I don't wanna throw my program under the bus because I really did prefer it, and I generally just don't name them on here. I've had comments in the past that said people appreciated that because it kind of gave an unbiased opinion to living in Prague and not just like a channel that's selling the course that I'm doing, and I totally agree with that. But like I said, there are so many good things about my program, but I definitely think there were things that weren't so great, and obviously they're a business, they have to make money. So for my first month of temporary housing, I think I paid about like $500 in rent if you calculated it, and I would say you should probably pay like a max of like $300 to $400 a month in Prague. When I was living in Prague 1, right off the Charles Bridge in like the fancy like touristy area of town, I was paying about $400 US-ish depending on the exchange rate. And now since I'm living in Prague 7, which is by no means far away from Prague, it's like very close to the center, but I think I pay about $300 US. So they definitely, I'm pretty sure, upcharged me and then took a cut for that. But like I said, I understand they're a business. But yeah, that was an expense I could have probably, looking back in hindsight, kind of cut down, especially because I only lived in it for like 2.5 weeks, and then I moved into my permanent address, which I'll get into cost-wise in a little bit. Also, side note, if you see me keep looking down, it's because I have my phone right below the camera, and that's where I have the list of all my prices out. And so yeah, I promise I just don't have like a weird nervous tick or something like that. But yeah, so anyways, the next thing I needed to do once I relocated here was get my visa. I wasn't gonna be able to work if I didn't have a working visa. I was only gonna be able to stay here for 90 days, so I had to apply. And quite honestly, I used somebody for my service instead of doing it myself. That sounds terrible. There's probably a better way I could have worded that, but basically it was recommended, basically everywhere I looked, that I said basically like 100 times there, woof. But it was recommended that I use a visa service to get my visa, because the process of getting a visa in the Czech Republic, honestly, I could make like a whole ranty video on it, which would probably be like an hour long and a whole nother topic, so we're not going to get into it, but it's very complicated to get a visa here, and so it was just recommended, you know, you pay someone to do it, and honestly, I think it was money well spent. I used the service Visa Guru, which I was connected to through my school. They recommended them, and I really liked them. They made it quick and easy for me. I've heard mixed reviews from certain people who didn't have a great experience with it. I personally enjoyed it. You can look online basically and Google visa services though, and I'd say expect to pay maybe like $500 to $700 for it. Bear in mind that includes them like taking care of like all the translations. Usually they have a Czech speaker with them, so they know they can like communicate with your landlord, the services, the different like embassies that you're talking to for you. They know the steps, they know how to file everything. So it's just honestly the best way to go. And I'm gonna break down the extra costs that came with my visa in just a few minutes. But yeah, I'd say, I think I paid on the lower scale. I think I paid about $500 to do my visa service. And like I said, I know that's a lot, but I needed it. And honestly, I don't think I would have been able to do the visa service by myself. Like, I'm pretty sure I would have just gotten kicked out of the country because I would have done it wrong. So definitely money well spent. Okay, so my next major cost then is gonna fall under the umbrella of getting my visa, but before I do that, I just have two little costs that, you know, you can kind of pick and choose if you were to do this and move abroad, but I think they were kind of necessary. So let me talk about those really quick, and then we'll do my big visa category. So I'd say Prague and generally Europe is pretty well known for their public transport systems, especially in Prague. There's a really good tram, metro, bus system, and it would be foolish really to have a car and use that instead of the public transport. And also you can just basically walk everywhere. Everything that I would say is within like a 15 to 45 minute walk. But yeah, I decided I wanted to get a metro card so that I could have unlimited access to all the subway systems, the metro, the tram, the buses, all that kind of stuff at any time of the day, and just not have to worry about it. Because if you don't have a card and you get caught riding, because Czechs ride on the honor system, which is really cool, but if you get caught riding without one, you get a really hefty fine. So I decided I was going to get a year-long pass, which I'm actually not going to include that cost in here because I consider that like a investment into my like current not startup costs. But I did pay for my initial first month here for a month-long tram pass, which covered me for like 31 days, however long the first month. How many days are in January? 30 days past September, April, June, and November. 31. 31. But yeah, so that was roughly about, I'm looking at my notes, about $30 for my first month. It expired after the month, and then at that point I decided to buy my year-long pass because I knew I was going to actually be here for a year. But yeah, it's just a small cost. If you are living close to where you work or are going to school or whatever, then maybe you consider not doing it and just walking places. I know I have people that they live literally right next door to where they work, so they only get like 2 or 3 30-minute cards a week where you just kind of validate it when you get on, and it's good for 30 minutes because it's not worth paying for an entire month when they're not using it that much. But yeah, to each their own. I chose to do that for my first month. Honestly, probably one of my biggest priorities when I got here was figuring out my phone plan. Honestly, I'm not really that technologically savvy when it comes to phones. Phones always confuse me, and I feel like I always end up doing something wrong. But I ended up getting a SIM card at the time because I was doing the TEFL course. I had a student ID card, so I got a discount for it. Also, side note, I still have my student card from college, and I'll sometimes use it to get discounts, which you should do that if you have it, if you still look like it. If you're within a reasonable age limit to your student card, maybe keep using your university ID, but this was a specific one for the Czech Republic, saying I was going to school here, and because of that I got a discount on my phone plan. So for my first month it was about like $20 a month just for my data and everything, SIM card to put into my phone. Since then I've gotten an extended phone plan, which is about $30 a month, and I have like the most minimal amount of data you need, because honestly I keep my US phone plan in for the most part so I can contact people back home, and I just connect to Wi-Fi. But if I ever am out and about and lost or need to call someone, I have my Czech data, Czech SIM card then to make those kind of calls or research stuff, whatever it may be. But basically for my first month I paid about $20 in order to do that. Okay, let's get into the big one, visa stuff. So like I said, I paid $500 to have someone provide my visa for me and do the service and take care of it, but there were also small costs that I also had to pay along the way to get my visa. So first things first, when you come here you have to have a bank letter from the US stating that you have, I think it was $6,000 in your account. Now if you don't have that amount of money and you still want to move abroad, don't worry. I knew a lot of people who ended up just borrowing it from friends or family. As soon as they got their letter and their visa approved, they just transferred the money back to them. However, as I break down this budget, I think it's definitely necessary to have that money. I personally got that amount of money by selling everything I owned, including my car. So I feel like that sounds kind of braggy. That's like a big amount of money. Man, when I really think about this, it stresses me out because I probably could have paid off my student loans. Okay, I digress. But yeah, basically you have to have that amount of money in your bank account. You can do with it as you please after, but basically you get that form and then it has to be translated to Czech, which is my first cost for my visa service. I think it was roughly like $2 to $5 a page. I'll go on the upside and just say $5 to have it translated. It was a one-page document, so honestly not that much money spent there, but just a little cost to expect. Next step in my visa process was to go to the US embassy here in Prague and basically just hold up my right hand and be like, I promise I'm not a criminal, and then they cleared me for my police check. But that cost about $20 US, I believe, possibly a little more. I think you had to pay in euros or Czech crown, so I'm not exactly sure on the exchange rate, but I'm pretty sure it was close to 20, maximum 30, but we're gonna go with 20 because, why the heck not? But yeah, so that's a requirement. Basically, you do all these steps and then you can officially apply for your visa, and so this was just one of the steps to do that, and it cost a little bit of money. Now, in order to get your visa, you have to have a landlord sign 2 documents, and the reason for this is the type of visa that expats have here in Prague is called the Živnostenský, shortened, that's not a word, shortened, it's called the Živno. Basically, it's just a freelancer license saying I'm a freelance worker. You can put your categories as to what you do here. So I have writing, editing, teaching, I think I have photography, art, generally art stuff, I don't know, but you can list the categories. If I were to say get a job in marketing, I could add marketing to it, or sales, accounting, stuff like that. But yeah, basically you have this freelancer license, but because you don't have your own business that you're getting your visa through, you have to link your personal business to the address that you're at. So your landlord basically has to sign these forms saying it is okay for their Živno to be linked to our apartment. Their apartment number is now their personal business address, and so yeah, that's a requirement. If they're not willing to do that, you have to pay I think $10 to $15 a month to get your own personal mailbox. I was very lucky that I had a landlord that was willing to sign my documents for me, but that means you are committing to a lease before you have your visa and before you are working, because you can't work without your work visa. So basically I had to pay for my first month's rent, my last month's rent, or the deposit, which I'll get back whenever that's up. I currently have somebody subletting and I'm moving back in there in a couple months. I'm just temporarily gone because I'm traveling around a little bit. But that, and then because I wanted to make sure that I had a good location, that I was able to find something within like 3 days of moving here, because I needed it quickly so I could get my visa, to make sure that they were willing to sign those forms. Did I just say that? Is that redundant? I don't even remember. And that I had somebody, like a middleman, to help with any kind of language barrier. We went through a service that like basically they charge us a finder's fee in order to help a realtor. It's called a realtor. I don't know where I'm going with this. We had a realtor help us, and their finder's fee was also the equivalent to what first month's rent was. So basically right out of the gate, I paid 3 months worth of rent, and at that time, like I said, I was paying $400 per month-ish for the rent. Now, I do know, like I said, I will get that back in the deposit once my lease is officially up. But yeah, that was an expense that probably was like the biggest hit on my account, because I was like, oh dang, I'm making this commitment and I don't have a job yet. It was really stressful, but also necessary. Okay, so once you get everything taken care of with your visa, in order to have it finalized, you need to do one final interview with the Czech embassy. But here's the catch. There is no Czech embassy in the Czech Republic. You have to travel for it. Usually the closest places you can go to are Berlin, Vienna, Warsaw, Serbia. They have others outside the Schengen zone, like in Dublin, Scotland, stuff like that. But yeah, usually it's just kind of first come, first serve, whatever appointment's available. I personally got placed in Warsaw, which was fine because I was able to go eat pierogies. I made a video about it. Links on the screen somewhere. But yeah, so you have to travel for it. And so there's travel expenses with that. We ended up booking kind of last minute. I went with my one friend because she had an interview on the same day. So I think like we took the train because it was cheapest, and it was like $60 for one way, so about $120 to go there and back. And then also we ended up like extending it into a little bit of a trip, like a long weekend, so that we could actually see Warsaw, because we're gonna travel there, we might as well enjoy it. So we stayed for 3 nights, and I believe since we split an Airbnb, it was only like $25 a night. But yeah, so that was like $75 total, and then obviously other things like food and sightseeing and stuff like that, but I'm not going to calculate in it because that was something I personally just chose to do, but also just something to keep in mind. You are going to have to travel to finalize your visa. Okay, I think I got through generally everything that could be on the like startup cost list. If I missed anything, or if you can think of anything, if you've done this before, leave a comment down below just so we can share the wealth of knowledge. But yeah, let's calculate this baby up. I contemplated trying to calculate it in my mind, but I'm going to tell you that's not gonna happen, so we're gonna just speed up here while I calculate through my calculator app. Okie dokie, so we have our TEFL course, our flight, our first month's temporary rent, the visa service, and with the visa service, then translations, police checks, interview fees, travel expenses with that, first month's rent, last month's rent, and the finder's fee included to be able to get those forms signed, our Tram card, and our phone card, all equaling the grand total of $4,450 for our startup costs. And then also on top of that, like bear in mind you're living in Europe for the first time, so like there's a lot of extra, like I'm pretty sure for my first month I ate every single meal out, and obviously I live in the Czech Republic, which is like the land of the beer, so I had a lot of drinks, although beer is cheaper than water here, but there's just a lot. You're living in Europe, you want to travel. I traveled a bunch during my first couple months here, so while like that is a rough estimate, I would always estimate up. So yeah, saying comfort with like $6,000 in your account, I'd say that's pretty accurate for our startup costs. And also bear in mind like stuff like my Tram card, my like phone plan, that was only for the first month, so you have to extend that. Yeah, dang, that's a lot of money. That really stresses me out. And also you have to keep in mind too, like, so like I said before, like getting the visa definitely takes over 90 days. So you get here, you do your course for a month, and then there are a couple months where like some places are willing, honestly, if we're gonna be honest, to pay you under the table here until you get your visa and just pay you in cash. Other places are not. The school I was at was not willing to pay me until I had my visa. But yeah, it can take like a heck of a long time before you actually have your visa and can work and are making money, and you're just like living off of your savings. So I would say if you're gonna be safe, come with about like $6,000 to $10,000. That's a lot of money. Hot dang. I'm contemplating all my life choices right now. Honestly, I would not change a minute of this trip. Yes, it was a lot of money and very stressful at times, but 1000% it was worth it. I live in Europe. I live in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I teach the most adorable kids, so every single penny spent was well spent. But yeah, let's wrap this video up, guys, now that I just had like a mental breakdown about finances. Roll the end slide, end card. Oh gosh. Outro. There we go. Alrighty guys, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you share it with your friends, family, strangers, all the people in the world. And make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can get video updates in the future. Until next time, bye guys!